Hi everyone, I am Christy Shane Ginocor from Group 8. So today we'll be discussing about Russian literature. What is Russian literature? Russian literature is the body of written works produced in Russian language by engaging in political, social, religious, ethical, and moral discussion through the writing. Russian authors depict and break down the thinking, emotions, and acts of their characters and the situation of the society with extraordinary force and honesty. Russian literature is an important aspect to the country's culture and education worldwide. To make it simple to understand and to keep it short, Russian literature helps us to understand ourselves even more. And that is why many masterpieces of Russian literature have become well known, as there are many Russians who can relate to them, not just in Russia but throughout the world. The history of Russian literature. The peculiar structure of Russian history has sparked a number of debates. It is divided into numerous periods. The Old Russian literature, early history, 18th century, Golden Age, Silver Age, and post-Soviet era. The reform of Peter the Great reigned 1682 to 1725, who quickly westernized the kingdom, caused such a dramatic break with the past that it was customary in the 19th century to argue with the Russian literature and barely began a century previously. Vissarionon Belzinski, the most important critic of the 19th century, even recommended the year 1739 as the beginning of Russian literature, effectively depriving all pre-Putin works of their title of literature. The Russian Revolution of 1917 and the Bolshevik coup that followed later that the year created yet another major split, eventually turning official Russian literature to communist state propaganda. Finally, Mikhail Gorbachev's rise to power in 1985 and the Soviet Union's demise in the 1991 marked another watershed moment. The fact that the breaks were abrupt rather than gradual, and that they were caused by political forces outside of literary history is significant. The Old Russian Literature. The period from the 11th to 17th century is covered by Old Russian literature. Russian literature, the body of written works produced in Russian language, beginning with the Christianization of Kievan Rus in the late 10th century. The Lives of Boris and Gleb, The Tale of Bygone Years, The Date of Igor's Campaign, and the Zadochkina are all vivid examples of literary masterpieces.
So moving on to the next period, we have the early history. So the early history began with political chaos, power disputes, peasant rebellions, and foreign invasions really shook Russians. So this time of troubles became the topic of a number of historical works. During this time, Western cultural influences gradually into Russia. Patriarch Nikon's liturgical changes in the mid 17th century fractured the Russian Church. The Old Believers produced some exceptional literature, notably the life of the archpriest Avvakum, who was eventually burned at the stake. So this work is a classic 17th century Russian prose that chronicles Avvakum's life in a forceful vernacular way, in a contradictory structure that is both autobiography and autohagiography. So his narrative offers a sense of his obsessive and earthy nature. So moving on to the next period, we have the 18th century. So at the beginning of 18th century, this was when Peter the Great sat on the throne. So during his reign, a series of modernizing developments in Russian literature were launched. So his reforms encouraged Russian writers and scientists to innovate their crafts and professions in order to create a comparable economy and culture. So the 18th century was a period of codification, imitation, and absorption of foreign models. The century's major contribution was the development of a literary language. Church Slavonic was inadequate under the burden of new subject matter and the infusion of foreign terminology, and the consequent language chaos required the standardization of literary Russian. So one of the notable writers on this period is Mikhail Lomonosov. In his unfinished Peter the Great work, Lomonosov expressed his gratitude for and dedication to Peter's legacy. Lomonosov's works often focused on themes of awe-inspiring grandeur nature, and he was drawn to Peter because of his magnitude of his military, architectural, and cultural feats. So Lomonosov believed in a hierarchy of literary styles splits into high, middle, and low levels. So let's talk another notable writer, which is Nikolai Karamzin. He is recognized for his encouragement of female Russian writers and his advocacy of Russian writers embracing features in poetry and prose such as heightened sense of emotion and physical vanity, both of which were deemed feminine at the time. So his works were not universally favorably received because the Enlightenment principles of reason and theory, which are considered masculine traits, could not align with Karamzin's appeal for male writers to write with femininity, but they did reflect a rising admiration for, or at least ambivalence toward, a female ruler, which is Catherine the Great, in some parts of society. So this thought, Karamzin's thought, gave birth to a period in which female traits in literature were viewed as an abstract term.
Hi everyone, I am Muhammad Hussein Haji Salim. So let's proceed to 19th century or golden stage. So Russian literature of the 19th century is considered to be the golden age of Russian literature. So the term golden age in Russian literature has been used to refer to most of the 19th century, when some of Russia's greatest and most internationally praised writers saw their height. So from Alexander Pushkin's 1831, Eugene Onegin to Leo Tolstoy, last novels at the end of 1890s. So this is the period when masterpieces of Russian literature, history, and art entered onto the world stage. So from around the 1830s, Russian literature underwent an astounding golden age beginning with the poet Alexander Pushkin. For Russians, the genius of Pushkin exemplifies this golden age, having written in all literary genres, narrative poem, lyric, tragedy, and the short story, novel, travelogue, and history. It was Pushkin who brought everyday Russian language into literary use. And it was Pushkin who first explored many of Russian literature's major themes. So here are the other writers of the period. The first of the list is Grividov, Lemurtov, and Gogol, as well as their heirs Turgenev, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, and Chekhov. So they form the links of this golden literary chain. Their works have forever entered the classics of the world literature.
Good day, everyone. I am Mario Mauas. The next is 20th Century Silver Age. The 20th Century Silver Age, the early 20th century, was the period of both social and cultural upheaval and foreshoots. Realistic portrayal of life did not satisfy author any longer, and their agreement with the classic of the 19th century generate bundle of the new literary movements. Silver Age is traditionally applied by the Russian philologists to the last decade of 19th century and first 2 or 3 decades of the 20th century. It was an exceptionally creative period in the history of Russian poetry, on par with the Golden Age a century earlier. The Silver Age was the first suggested by the philosopher. It only became customary to refer those to this era literature in the 1960s. The Silver Age of the Russian literature was represent a rather short of period from 1890 to 1921, a time of tremendous turmoil, turmoil, war, and revolution. In this turbulent time, however, Russian poetry flourished and bold experiment in all form of art took place. The famous writers Alexander Koprin, Evan Bunin, Leonid Andreev, Fedorov Sologov, Alexis Remizov, Yevgeny Zamyatin. Post-Soviet era. Female short story writer Tatiana Tolstaya, Ludmil Petroshevskaya, Ludmila Oletskaya, Denarovena. The end of the century proved a difficult period of Russian literature with a reliability few distinct voice. Classic Russian novel Mikhail Shishkin and Vasily Aksionov. Alexander Marena, Volena Dashkova, and Darya Doshova.
Russian literature. So Russian authors have significantly contributed to numerous literary genres. So Russia has 5 Nobel Prize in Literature laureates. As of 2011, Russia was the fourth largest book producer in the world in terms of published titles. So a popular folk saying claims Russians are the world's most reading nations. So regarded as one of the greatest authors of all time, it is Leo Tolstoy. He received nominations for the Nobel Prize in Literature every year. So his fictions constantly attempts to convey realistically the Russian society in which he lived. So one of its story he make is the Two Brothers. And that's for Russian literature. And I hope that you learned something from us. Thank you.